It was past midnight. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, its sound filling the quiet void of my home. After hours of tossing and turning, of staring at the ceiling and willing sleep to come, I finally gave up. With a sigh, I pushed the blanket aside and stepped onto the cold wooden floor. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the old beams settling into the night. I made my way to the kitchen, my body heavy with exhaustion, yet my mind unwilling to rest. As I poured myself a glass of water, the dim glow from the living room caught my attention. The lights were still on. Yeah, it was that night. Ryan was here. My brother Daniel had sent him over, asking me to take him in for a while. When I first heard what had happened, my heart ached for him. His wife, his partner for over a decade, had betrayed him, shattering the life they had carefully built together. It was the kind of betrayal that stole the ground from beneath you, leaving you suspended in a void of disbelief and pain. I didn't know Ryan well, but I understood that kind of hurt. Daniel's son was struggling too, drowning in the chaos of their broken family. Please, Emma, Daniel had pleaded over the phone. Ryan needs somewhere to be. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. Safe. Did my home even feel that way anymore? I took a sip of water and leaned against the counter, staring at the living room door. The soft hum of the heater filled the air, a contrast to the cold ache inside my chest. It had been 7 years since I lost Michael. 7 years since my world had collapsed in an instant. One moment we were making plans, building a life together, and the next he was gone. A sudden heart attack had stolen him away, leaving me stranded in a future we had dreamt of, but would never see. People say time heals, but some wounds remain, shaping the person you become. I had learned to live with the silence, with the empty side of the bed, with the unspoken words that would never be heard. But lately, the loneliness had been heavier, pressing against me in the quiet hours of the night. And tonight was one of those nights. I set my glass down and walked toward the living room. As I stepped into the doorway, I saw Ryan sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. The volume was muted, the screen casting a dull glow across his tired face. He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. Can't sleep either? I asked softly. Ryan exhaled, running a hand through his disheveled hair. No. I nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. Without a word, I walked over and sat on the armchair across from him. We didn't need to speak. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was the kind that came when two people carried the weight of loss and betrayal, when words felt unnecessary. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel so alone. And maybe, just maybe, neither did he. I stepped into the living room, and there he was, Ryan, sitting on the couch, staring at the television screen. A romantic movie played, but he wasn't really watching. His eyes were distant, unfocused, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely, chasing memories that had long since faded. The soft glow of the screen cast flickering shadows across his face, highlighting the quiet melancholy in his expression. At that moment, all I wanted was to give him peace. But I had no idea that life had other plans for us. He turned his head slightly as he noticed me. Did I wake you? His voice was low, hesitant, carrying an undercurrent of something unspoken. Uncertainty, maybe even loneliness. I shook my head, hugging my arms around myself. No, I replied, offering a small smile. Just getting some water. The truth was, I wasn't thirsty. Not really. I just didn't want to be alone, not tonight. The silence of my room had felt too heavy, pressing down on me like an unbearable weight. Maybe sitting here, next to Ryan, would make the night feel a little less empty. Maybe for a little while, I could pretend that everything was normal. Ryan studied me for a moment, then motioned to the empty space beside him. Come sit, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Let's watch it together. It wasn't a tough decision. I wanted warmth. I wanted meaning. So I sat down beside him, careful to leave just enough space between us. Enough to remind myself that we were still just two people, bound only by circumstance, not yet by anything deeper. The movie continued, soft murmurs of dialogue filling the silence. But I wasn't paying attention. My mind was elsewhere, on the presence of the man sitting next to me, on the way the dim light softened his features, making him seem almost vulnerable in a way I had never noticed before. There was something about him, something that pulled at the edges of my understanding, something I couldn't quite name. And then, without meaning to, I shifted slightly, and my arm brushed against his. It was the smallest touch, fleeting and unintentional, but it sent a jolt through me. My breath caught in my throat as I instinctively pulled back. Sorry, I blurted, my voice too quick, too nervous. Ryan hesitated for a second, then gave a small nod. It's okay. Don't worry about it. But the air between us had changed. The space that once existed now felt smaller. The silence felt louder. And even though neither of us moved, I could feel something shifting, something neither of us fully understood yet. I would remember that night as the beginning of something unexpected, something fragile, something that would change everything. The next morning, sleep-deprived and restless, I found myself drawn to the piano, as if its familiar presence could somehow anchor me. My fingers moved instinctively over the keys, searching for solace in the melody. The soft, resonant notes filled the quiet room, weaving through the morning light like threads of an old memory. The piano had always been my refuge, a sanctuary of sound that reminded me of Michael. The thought of him lingered, a bittersweet ache, but the music dulled the edges of my grief, if only for a moment. Then I saw him. Ryan stood outside, watching through the window, his expression unreadable. I hadn't noticed him at first, lost as I was in the music, but when he opened the door and stepped inside, a sudden awareness gripped me. My fingers faltered, the melody breaking into silence. He remained still, listening, as if absorbing the remnants of the song. That was beautiful, he said, his voice carrying something raw, something vulnerable. Thank you. Honestly, that's the best birthday gift I've ever gotten. I blinked. Birthday? Yeah. A small, almost sheepish smile appeared on his lips. I turned 40 today. Something inside me shifted. The weight of the past few days, the loneliness pressing at the corners of my heart, all seemed to lift just slightly. A birthday, his birthday, a moment that deserved something more than just solitude. Then we have to celebrate, I said, straightening in my seat. How about some wine and cake tonight? Ryan looked at me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Then after a pause he grinned. If you're suggesting it, I guess tonight might actually be fun. He hesitated, then added with a playful glint in his eyes. But there's a catch. You have to play for me again. A laugh escaped me, the sound light, unexpected. The nervousness bubbling inside me dissipated. Fine, but only if we open a really good bottle of wine. That evening, with glasses of rich red wine in hand and slices of cake between us, the night softened. The conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving through stories of the past and quiet revelations. Laughter filled the spaces where silence had once settled, bridging the unspoken distance between us. And as the music played once more, filling the room with something tender and unguarded, I realized how much warmth could be found in unexpected moments. How sometimes the simplest melodies could bring people closer, note by note. As the night deepened, the boundaries between us grew fainter, dissolving like mist under the warmth of shared moments. The dim glow of the room softened the edges of reality, leaving only the unspoken tension humming between us. I played the piano again, my fingers gliding over the keys, weaving a melody that felt both foreign and familiar. The notes resonated in the quiet space, a conversation neither of us dared to voice aloud. And then, Ryan moved closer. His presence was magnetic, an unspoken gravity pulling us into the same orbit. He stood beside me, his warmth seeping into my skin as his hands rested lightly over mine. You're an amazing woman, he murmured, his voice a low whisper that sent shivers down my spine. And you play beautifully. His fingers didn't move away. Neither did I. Time folded into itself. One song bled into another, but I could no longer tell if I was still playing, or if the rhythm now pulsed between us. The silence was thick with anticipation, and when he finally turned me toward him, it was as if the night itself held its breath. Later, we sat on the couch, the weight of unspoken things pressing against us. The world beyond the walls of this moment ceased to exist. His hand found mine, tracing slow circles on my wrist, and I let myself lean into him. The scent of his cologne, the quiet sound of our breathing, the way his eyes darkened under the dim light. It was a moment suspended in time, fragile yet inevitable. Everything happened so fast. One moment, we were two lonely souls seeking solace in music. The next, we were something else entirely. Two bodies tangled in a night that blurred the lines between longing and reality. When I woke the next morning, the air was thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. My head was still clouded with the remnants of sleep and memories that felt both vivid and dreamlike. I sat up slowly, the cool sheets slipping down my bare shoulders. And then I saw him, standing in the kitchen shirtless, his back to me as he poured steaming coffee into a waiting cup. The golden light of morning highlighted the strong lines of his shoulders, the easy way he moved, as if he belonged here. As if we belonged here. My nightgown and underwear were still scattered on the floor, silent. Witnesses to the choices made under the cover of darkness. A sharp pang of uncertainty curled in my stomach, battling against the warmth still lingering from the night before. What now? Panic, excitement, guilt. Every emotion collided inside me, an unbearable storm surging through my chest. Ryan turned, his gaze meeting mine, searching. There was a silence between us, thick with unspoken words, heavy with everything we should have said but didn't dare to. The air was dense, charged, suffocating. I need a shower, I mumbled, my voice barely more than a whisper, and without waiting for a response I slipped away, shutting the door behind me. The rush of hot water did little to clear my head. I pressed my forehead against the cool tiles, breathing deeply, hoping foolishly that the pounding in my chest would subside. But the moment was burned into my mind, impossible to wash away. I stepped out, wrapping the towel tightly around me, as if it could shield me from everything unraveling inside. Then, just as I reached for the handle, the door cracked open. Ryan stood there. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. Our eyes locked, and for a moment, the world shrank to just this. Just him, just me, just the unbearable weight of what we had done. I don't even know what's happening, I whispered, my voice barely holding together. I don't know how we got here. Ryan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck, his expression unreadable. We should regret this, right? I nodded. I wanted to. I needed to. But the truth was, I wasn't sure. He took a step closer, hesitated. His lips parted as if he had something else to say, something that might make this make sense. But he closed them just as fast. Let's pretend this never happened, he said finally, his voice quiet, almost fragile. It's for the best. And just like that, the moment shattered. I swallowed hard, forcing a nod, even as something inside me twisted painfully. Because the worst part of an unforgettable night isn't the regret. It's the silence that follows, the unspoken truth that lingers in the air long after the moment is gone. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable nights are the ones we can never speak of again.